Hello, I'm Ella Fox for the Golden Report. On this episode, we'd like to address active shooter protocol at Tennessee Tech following the discharge of a firearm just outside of Tech's campus. On February 13th, many students received notification from the university alerting them to take shelter, barricade entries, and fight if necessary. This was due to the discharge of a firearm through the window of Crepe and Cream just feet away from Crawford Dormitory. In this episode, we will dive into this story, the shooter protocols in place, and the thoughts of students and faculty. On the night of February 13th, a road rage incident invoked the discharge of a firearm through the window of a local restaurant, Crepe and Cream. This restaurant is located feet away from Crawford Dormitory, on the border of campus property. Once the police were alerted of the situation, a rave text alert went out to students and faculty telling them to take shelter and fight if necessary. Once the shooter fired his gun through the window, he turned himself in to a student staff at the Mark Burnett Fitness Center.
So Addison, you were the employee approached by the shooter last Tuesday night. Tell us about what happened, the scene of the incident.
We basically got the building secured and locked down, and after we had done that, a man approached the front desk and he told us that it was his gun that went off. So we promptly called 911. Alerted them of what the situation was, gave 911 his name, and the response time was very fast. I think they were here within a couple of minutes, maybe even 90 seconds to a couple minutes, so it was really a good response time.
Yeah. What was going through your head during the lockdown and the protocols?
So at first we didn't have much information to go on with that first alert, so we were all just a little confused, especially since we had the tornado drill, I think the day of or the day before, so we all didn't know if it was a drill or not. But after that second alert, we promptly shut down the building, got everybody secure, doors locked, and it was nerve-wracking just based on the climate of today.
Now, you said that he approached you. Do you remember what he said exactly, or to the best of your knowledge?
He said, "Hey, it was my gun that went off." He made it sound like it was a misfire, like it was an accident.
And do you feel like you were properly trained for the situation, to handle the situation?
I've dealt with a couple of these situations before, but it was all kind of chaos and new for the fit.
Yeah.
We hadn't gone over this type of training yet, but we actually had a meeting with our staff team, and we went over what would happen in these types of situations.
During this situation, Tennessee Tech was also hosting men's and women's basketball games at the Hooper Evelyn Center. So Mark, where were you when all this happened?
I was sitting courtside here enjoying the game, and Matt Dexter, our Assistant Athletic Director for External Relations, who oversees all facilities and game management for us, came over and notified me that he and campus police needed to speak with me in the tunnel. And in the tunnel, they informed me that there had been an incident at Crepes and Cream, and quickly got briefed on what they thought was the incident itself. We determined that we'd put our protocols in place to protect the participants in the game and the spectators that were here in the Hooper Evelyn Center. So therefore, we moved some campus police officers to the main lobby. We shut down the other 3 entrances to the Hooper Evelyn Center. That way, if someone did come into the game, they could observe people coming in. They could be really observant, make sure that nobody with any kind of weapon was coming into the Hooper Evelyn Center on that evening.
What were the protocols that were put into place?
Well, first off, making sure we protect the participants and the fans that were here, locking down the doors, informing Dr. Oldham, who was here as a spectator. So before that, we knew the rave alert was going to come out, but before he got that rave alert, I went over and whispered in his ear that a rave alert was going to come out, told them what the incident was, told them we had put our protocols in place here in the Hooper Evelyn Center, and we felt like everybody here would be safe. Because that's always the utmost thing that we all have to do, is to keep everybody safe, keep our students safe, keep spectators safe, keep the participants of the game safe. And then people got the rave alert, and you could see lots of people looking at their phones and those questions and things of that nature. And but I was really pleased how the protocols went that evening, and the communication between us and campus police. It's got to be a partnership, and their communication was excellent, and they were getting information from the City of Cookeville Police. So our protocols worked really well that evening.
Do you practice these protocols?
We do. We talk about our protocols on an annual basis and rehearse them. What will you do? Who will do what? Who will be involved? Who is the decision maker? Like if I happen to not be at the game, who's in charge? Who's making those decisions then? So we do, because it's very important, because in a stressful situation like that, if you haven't rehearsed them, then there's a higher rate of failure in that decision-making process. And so it doesn't matter what kind of emergency procedure, whether it be a spectator having a medical incident, or somebody on the floor, a participant in the game having a medical incident, or outside threats to us. We do rehearse those, and that's really important for organizations to rehearse, to make sure that they are fully prepared for any incident, to protect and make sure the safety of the fans and participants are of utmost importance.
We had several students ask us why there was no announcements at the game. Why was this?
Yeah, we didn't want to interrupt the flow of the game. We did feel like it was not a threat on the Hooper Evelyn Center. It was an isolated incident just off campus. So we did not make announcements because we didn't want to get a panic in the crowd. We knew they were going to get the rave alert, but the rave alert was pretty specific to where the incident took place on 7th Street. And we put our protocols in place, because what you don't want to do is raise people's stress level in an unnecessary way, especially with the game going on. We felt like if we were going to make an announcement, then we need to cease the game, move the participants in the game and the officials to their locker rooms. And at that point in time, we didn't think that the threat was necessary for that.
We spoke with Chief Nelson of Tech Police about the events that transpired.
Explain to us a little bit about the events that occurred the night of the shooting incident. The
night that the incident was reported, the Cookeville Police Department responded to a local eatery along 7th Street near our campus on a call of shots fired. When they arrived, they did find that the building had been shot. The projectile had came through the north side window of the building and then lodged into the wall inside the eatery. Once they verified that there was an actual shooting that had taken place over there, they notified us and the officers responded. Once the officers responded from our department, along with the CPD officers, they determined that most likely the shot had come from across the street, which would put it on Tech property. So the officers began to look around and see if there was any other property that had been shot, if there was anything going on. Once they determined also that that shot had most likely came from across the street and on our property, that's when the officers had advised dispatch to activate our TTU alert system, which is an alert system so that we can notify the campus community at any time when we have an incident that we feel threatens the safety of our students, faculty, and staff. Once that alert went out, a few moments later, the individual who was responsible for firing that shot approached an individual in the fitness center where he had continued on after this incident occurred, and then made a statement that he was the one responsible for firing the shot and was anybody hurt. At that point, they notified us, and us, University Police along with Cookeville Police responded to the fitness center where the individual was detained for questioning about the incident. Upon questioning the individual about the incident, he made the statement that there was a road rage incident that had occurred and that he was upset and that he saw the individual pull into this local eatery and that he had pulled over off the road onto the Tech property and had fired a shot intending for it to go over the building. Since that time in the investigation, the Cookeville Police Department did end up charging him with, I think, 10 counts of reckless endangerment with a firearm. So there was 10 people in the building, so you're basically being charged for each individual that was in the building for firing that weapon.
Can you just explain some of the safety measures that Tech Police has or enforces to ensure that students feel safe in campus?
Well, first and foremost, it's the presence of the officers themselves, right? We patrol the campus. There's always officers that patrol the campus. We also have the local police, Cookeville Police, that patrol this area. And of course, the measures that we have in place with our alert systems. We have emergency phones placed across the campus. There's over 24 of those emergency phones. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that is put in place because we want them to feel safe. We want them to feel like they can be out on campus without worrying about stuff like this. So anything that we can do to increase their feeling of safety, we try to do that.
We were curious where students were during the shooting and how they felt.
I feel like it could have been handled with a little bit more grace. It seemed very rushed and very, you know, all the details were, you know, just put out like, hey, this happened, da, 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 but then it was changed. Like, actually, it wasn't an accident.
No, in a sense, because, you know, the basketball game was still going on directly at the moment. So, as a student who was watching the basketball game, I didn't really hear anything from like official or law enforcement just to clarify if everything was okay when I had to reach to my peers just to see or where to go from there.
I have a Snapchat group chat with like chemical engineers in my major and in my year, and everyone was like, is it real, is it not real, because there was the confusion at first, like it wasn't clear, and then it was like, oh, this is real. And I saw like the barricade note, so I was actually in my SGA office upstairs, and so I stuck a chair in front of the door, and then I put like a tent in front of the door, so I was like a little worried, but I don't know, it was good to get like news and feedback like quickly. Like I feel like they were pretty quick with it, so that was really good.
During the shooting, classes were taking place. This prompted Provost Lori Bruce to organize a meeting with faculty. You held a meeting for professors who were teaching during the shooting alert. What prompted you to host the meeting?
Well, when I saw the rave alert, the alert come through, of course, being provost, my mind immediately went to students, student safety, faculty, all the employees. And then, being a professor, I thought, okay, what would I do if I were in the classroom right now? And so I thought, well, I'm going to look up and see how many classes we really even have going on at that time of night. You know, it was around between 7 and 7:30 in the evening. And so I found that there were maybe 10 or 12 classes on the schedule that if everything were going according to schedule, they would be in class during that time. And so I just looked up who was teaching those classes, and I thought I really wanted to reach out to those faculty. Number one, just to check on them and let them know someone's thinking about them, you know, see how they're doing, but also ask for feedback from them. And so just be there to listen to them, and hopefully maybe they could provide some constructive feedback about their experiences during that time.
Yeah, it's a very scary situation. I mean, you're dealing with students and teachers, and I was at a basketball game. So it's like all across the street, all this is taking place, and you're just like, well, what is going on? Like, what's going on with the students? What's going on with the faculty? What is going on across campus that more people need to know more about?
Yes. For me, I can only speak for me personally, but the unknown is always the scariest.
Yes.
Once you kind of know a situation, then you feel like you know how to deal with it better, but the unknown is scary. And that's what I heard from the faculty. I mean, not surprisingly. It was about 15 minutes between that first alert and then the all clear. But, you know, that 15 minutes can seem like a very long time when you genuinely don't know what's happening and what might be coming your way. Yeah, the faculty shared with me that they're, you know, obviously their first thought was, okay, how do I help keep people safe? And I think we all know there's no prescribed reaction to a situation like that. Anytime we have kind of an active alert, some kind of threat to campus, every situation's unique. And even in that situation, depending on if you're in a building right next to what's happening versus on the opposite side of campus, you might choose to respond differently. So the one thing that I heard from faculty, and I reassured them I agreed, is that there's really no prescribed action they can take. They have to use their best judgment, and they can't force students to do anything. If a student wants to evacuate, even if the faculty member thinks, I think it would be safer, the student, they're adults, and so students are in charge of their own actions, but there's still, even though there's no prescribed response, most of the faculty did very typical, similar things. They shut the doors, turned off the lights, tried to, in some way, disguise the fact that they were having a class in that room. One faculty said, well, all the lights in the building were on, so I didn't want to turn off the lights, because then why does that one room have lights off? So they really, at the forefront of their minds, what they expressed to me was, how do I help students stay safe?
As professors that teach lecture-sized halls, what do you have to do differently in a shooter protocol setting than someone who teaches smaller classrooms?
You know, I think one of the biggest differences that we face is in most classrooms, you have one way in and one way out. So, you know, the protocol of shelter in place, lock the door, get away from the window, and that works really well if I'm in a single classroom. But if I'm in, let's say, Bell Hall, when I have 4 entrances, 2 of those which are double doors, right? That's a little bit more logistic type of an issue that we might see. So there's so much room that we have to be cognizant of all the potential threats that might be around. So I think it's important, any room you go into, you have an idea of what you would do in this very, very unlikely worst case scenario, but good to have a plan.
Yes, it is. It's very good to have a plan. I think a lot of times, like when I go into these auditoriums, you know, I'm sitting there with anywhere up to 250 to I was in Stone Cipher and I had 289 students. You have to kind of understand the lay of the classroom, where everything is. Every classroom, no matter how large or small it is, there is a procedure there that is hanging in the room. You know, I familiarize myself with it. Students should familiarize themselves with it. I think that a lot of it in the large auditoriums comes down to being very much aware of the situation, okay? You know, seeing what's going on around you, knowing where the exits are. I know that seems like a cliche, you know, you go to the movie theaters and they go, take time out to know where the exits are, and we kind of joke about it. But when an emergency comes up, you really want to know these things. And so it really does help for you to have situational awareness of your surroundings and all the things that you could possibly, that you need to do at that time.
Yeah, the person who's best responsible for your well-being is you, right? So that requires you to put in that initial effort. Again, the likelihood of this occurring is so low, but the risk is so high. So do you know where that plaque is next to the exit door of your classroom? And it's there. You know, I promise you it's there. And have you read through it? And it might seem, well, this is very strange, like the amount of stuff that they plan for, but it's good to have a plan. If we didn't have a plan and one of these things were to occur, I mean, chaos more so than what already occur would be the result.
So with y'all saying that you believe that students should know the protocol themselves, would y'all ever consider teaching that protocol, like, for example, on syllabus day?
Yeah, I think we could teach it. And any professor who wanted to do that, certainly I think we would both support.
Yes.
The other side of this is the student handbook can't be like the terms and conditions that we're so frequently clicking through on our technology. We all should know our student handbook as much as the two of us should know our faculty handbook. Getting in there, again, we are in charge of our well-being. So taking that next step is on us, right? We have to do those types of things. So if you're a student out there and you don't know what to do in the case of a tornado or an active shooter or a fire, read, go find that protocol and then match it up to that classroom placard, which will be there, right? So that's a thing. Sometimes I think it's easy to say, well, someone should teach me this. Let's just assume they're not going to. So now what? And at the end of the day, I still want to go home. So if you're not going to teach me, something that's going to help me go home, I'm going to learn it.
So do you have some advice on how students can prepare for a situation like this?
You know, what we've kind of talked about is this idea of taking that next step and learning more about what to do. You know, there's several things that the FBI and the TBI, they have online modules and classes and things like that you can take, and those are always helpful. The more you can learn, the better you can be prepared, because again, once you're involved in this situation, we don't have any more time to learn. All we've got time for is to act.
I think that just here recently, we have a professor that's offering a class here at Tech about what to do in a situation of an active shooter. And like my colleague here said, usually the rule of thumb is you either run from the shooting or you hide, or if it comes down to it, if it's your life, you fight. And that's kind of the three main caveats that you do. But I kind of want to put in this little bit of information for students and everything. If you're in a situation where something is happening, make sure that you call 911. Don't take time out, I want to video this, or I want to take a selfie. I know that sounds silly, but every event that we ever see, you know, a tornado touching down, a fire, an active shooter, there's always video. Your main thing is to let someone know something's going down, okay? This kind of talks about a little bit in psychology. We talk about, you know, well, bystander apathy. It's not my responsibility, it's Doug's. You know, and like if something went down in a classroom, I want to make sure that I point out to students, like, you call 911. Because in a situation like that, in a very fluid situation, you might not think about that. You might not call. And that call could mean the difference between security or the police knowing or the fire department knowing where you're at. And so I think that's kind of a thing to keep in mind. And I think the other overarching thing is to kind of stay calm, okay? You know, I know that sounds the most ridiculous thing, all this is happening, but you want to stay calm, listen to the person that's in control, listen to your instructor. You know, they will tell you, everybody lock that door, get away from it, shut the windows, let's go out here in the parking lot, away from the building, all of these things. And if you're panicked and running around, you're not going to hear that, okay? And so this comes back to the thing that I said, and I think that Dr. Edwards will agree, is that our number one concern is our students' safety, okay? And if I can get you all out safe, wonderful. If I can get you all out safe and you're calm, then I know that I have all of you. You know, I don't have to go, well, what happened to the people that sat back here? Or I don't have people running around going, oh, they might still be in the building. And so I think that's one of the things that you need to keep in mind. And I think taking classes and looking these things up, the more you know, the more calm you will be.
As long as there's firearms, we're going to have stupid people that use them. Mm-hmm. And the main thing with that is we need to be situationally aware, and when we see something happen, know what to do.
Do you believe that we have a good protocol here on campus?
I do. And, you know, the thing to remember is every campus will have a different protocol. And when you go through this kind of stuff, you need to know those protocols to protect yourself and to protect others.
What advice would you give to faculty and students during incidents like this?
There's a lot of advice I could give them. Main thing I would say is to go through a surviving an active shooter course, which I do teach on campus, and understand the whole process. Unfortunately, many don't understand that this is not a new phenomenon. We go all the way back to the 1700s for mass violence. Additionally, we've seen it all through the years, even as recent as a few weeks ago. So mass violence is still there, has been for a long time, but we also need to know what law enforcement's going to do, what EMS is going to do, what firefighters are going to do. We need to know how to be the original first responder and what we need to do that. So if someone is shot and the shooter is no longer a threat to you, while you're waiting on public safety, that you can do things to save their life. And then we also need to realize what to look for after the incident, because there's so much that can happen, and the after effects aren't short term. They're not like a short sprint, they're a marathon.
While there were thankfully none harmed during the events on February 13th, discussions between administrators, faculty, and students continue. We hope that showcasing the thoughts and opinions of those who were affected by the Crepe and Cream shooting will bring attention to the flaws in our system and allow for us to learn how to better prepare for future threats. We offer our thanks to all who participated in our episode and to the city and campus police who responded to the shooting threat. Thank you for your time.